but I love watching Patrick Mahomes play football.
Oh yeah.
I think he's so much fun to watch. So I'll go with Mahomes.
Interview prep, baby.
Pass the torch, man. Keeps getting better.
So today we welcome on Jeff Darlington from ESPN. Jeff, thanks for joining, man. How are you?
Yeah, man. You know, you're getting I got the hat and the beard going because I was going to shave, but then I'm like, it's the Blitz. Like, you don't got to shave for the Blitz.
That's
like,
what we do, baby. I mean,
stay on brand, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you follow along on our social, but there's been many shirtless appearances of me at sports games. And
I've seen them. Yes, I've seen them in regardless of temperature, regardless of weather.
Regardless of temperature. I think we actually first met, and last time we saw each other, same day, was Patriots Bucks, Foxborough. Tom Brady's returned to him in New England. You were at the ESPN NFL Game Day set. And that was a cold day, but I spent all four quarters shirtless. So
I did not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my work requires some decorum.
Exactly. And hey, props to you. And we'll get into it in your relationship with Tom and everything like that. But unbelievable interview that week with Tom and his return to New England and telling that story. But yeah, so I want to throw it back to your beginning and your journey in sports media. And just so this is actually now you're the fourth ESPN media personality I've had on. I've talked to Emily Kaplan, who works in the NHL, Blake Bolden in the NHL, and then David Lloyd, who's on SportsCenter, who you may know as well. But they all have unique stories about how they got into the industry, right? Because sports and media in general can be like really hard to breach. So for you, how did you first get started in sports media?
Man, my story unfortunately sounds a little like you know, I was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Like unfortunately it goes way back. And I'll try to keep it as quick as possible. But I actually started writing like literally my first day of high school. My teacher in 8th grade, see what I'm saying here? My teacher in 8th grade, this lady named Miss Miller, Killer Miller, we used to call her. She was a bitch, but she like changed my life. It's crazy. God, I don't even know. I wonder if she's still alive. I should reach out to her. She walked over to the high school from the middle school, and she told the guidance counselor that she had to put me in newspaper class, that I was a good writer, and that like she like said, no matter what he says, do it. And I didn't have a choice. Killer Miller had me put into that newspaper class, and on the first day, this dude was like, "Who wants to write about sports?" And I raised my hand. And literally it's all I've ever done since. I kind of got into, I went to this place called the Poynter Institute for Media Studies in St. Pete, started stringing for the St. Pete Times. In fact, like, I won't even get into that story, but I basically started writing at a very early age, and that flowed into college at the University of Florida. And honestly, I've just been doing it ever since. It kind of helped me progress in my career because I had a little bit of a leg up, just in terms of time. You know, like I always tell people that ask me like how to get into the industry. I'm like, you know, depends on how old the person is. If they're in high school, I'm like, dude, just dig in right now because you can get a head start. You know, if someone's like 30 and they're asking me, I'm like, yeah, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
No.
But because it's a hard industry to dive into, but if you start young, you can definitely do it.
Just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Legends. It's all I've been rocking all year long. So go to legends.com, use code TORCH20. That's code TORCH20 for 20% off your order today at legends.com. Now let's get back to our interview.
Absolutely. And I can kind of resonate with that story. And how I got into media is like, I started a podcast my senior year of college, actually. And it was basically, it was like a first take style. Me and my buddy, I was from Boston, he's from New York. And we just agreed to disagree on everything. And we took it as a joke, but like, we also took it very seriously of like prep and all that and the production of it. And that's what kind of turned into the Blitz and now with TorchPro.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no,
it's funny because it's so different now compared to what it was. Like you can be entrepreneurial and get into this industry much easier than when I was coming up. It was like you had to go through like a newspaper. I mean, you kind of had to walk the corporate line and be sort of pedigree, which is now you can sort of blaze your own trail in a number of different ways. I mean, look at this. We're like Zooming.
Exactly. Exactly. And so while you were going through that journey and you went to University of Florida, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So was it always your goal to kind of get to ESPN, or what was that journey like?
Kind of, yeah. And I don't know if it's the same now. I mean, I'd imagine ESPN still has definitely some like people still dream of that job, but for me, absolutely. Like in 2000, like, yeah, that was it. That was the pinnacle. And I think it still is to a degree, other than the fact that you can kind of go a lot of different directions these days. But yeah, I mean, I was a writer. So I remember when I was at UF, we had this journalism convergence thing where literally it was Sal Palantonio, Bob Ryan, and John Marvel, who was the editor of ESPN.com at the time. And they came in to speak to UF and students about like the importance of understanding that the industry was going to a place. Keep in mind, there's no social media at this point, really barely much on the internet. I'm old as shit. This was 2003. And it was basically like, you have to understand that you're going to have to do TV, you're going to have to do radio, you're going to have to do these different mediums. And I remember taking that to heart. It was a really important day for me. And it's funny, I ended up working for John Marvel, that guy at NFL Network, and ended up working with Sal Pal at ESPN. But that day told me a lot in terms of like, okay, your focus cannot be one dimensional. And now it's probably the same for people, except it's like, okay, I better learn how to write as well, because you get into all these other mediums. So it was like, for me, it was like, okay, I can write, I can do that part, but I've got to start to incorporate the rest of this. And that's sort of what happened.
Right. So now you say you're old as shit and you're a veteran in the space and experience, but what are you more comfortable doing? Are you more comfortable writing or doing the long form interviews?
You know what?
TV?
I think I still have the ability to write, but I'm such a sellout. I haven't done it in a really long time. And I definitely would still embrace it. I mean, I was a beat guy for years. When I was at UF, I covered the Gators, and then I worked for the Miami Herald for years as a daily grinder. It's funny. I just thought of this. Going back real quick, the reason I picked the University of Florida, when I was in high school, I wanted to go into journalism school. You ask like how I got into it.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to do J school, and I was trying to decide which school to go to. I was between Indiana University and Florida, and I was like, I don't really know. I'm just going to go whatever school advances furthest in the NCAA tournament this year. Like that's how much like thought I was putting into it. And that year, Indiana was like a 1 seed. So obviously in my mind, I really wanted to go to Indiana. And Florida was like, I don't even know, like an 8 seed or something. And that's the year that Florida out of nowhere ended up playing Michigan State in the national title game, and Indiana got bounced in the first round. So that's the reason I ended up going to UF. But it was a weird blessing. It wasn't intended strategy, but I picked the school that was most relevant in sports. And as a result, got to cover all of these important moments. And that's sort of what's like vaulted my career a little bit. So, but anyway, yeah, back to what you were saying. I think of TV as a sprint and writing as a marathon.
Yep.
It's two totally different races and two totally different skill sets. So, writing is hard, man. Like it takes brain power. It takes long, like really digging in. TV is more, I would say, adrenaline, nerves, quick wit, and two completely different skill sets. I don't know which one I'm comfortable with both of them. I don't know which one I'm really good at, but I'm comfortable with both of them.
Yep, absolutely. And so now you're on a bunch of different ESPN shows throughout the course of a day, whether it's Get Up, First Take, Sports Center, NFL Live, you name it, you're on there talking about the NFL specifically a lot of the times. And so for you, my first question is, how often are you actually wearing pants?
By the way, does this coffee mug not look gigantic in this Zoom?
Makes your hand look small.
It looks I think it's just a very big. I mean, like, I feel like I need some context here.
Yeah,
it's a really big coffee cup because it makes me look very tiny.
We'll send you a morning blitz mug here.
Yeah,
we'll connect after. I'll put my pencils in there, but you can put coffee in there as well.
Hopefully it's tiny, so it makes my hand look large.
Yeah,
because this is just a bad look.
Smaller.
But anyway,
Yeah. So actually, how often are you wearing pants?
I have to wearing pants. So I'm never wearing suit pants. It requires context. Like when people say that, I don't know if they mean like, am I literally naked? Like never, obviously. Maybe
Yeah,
once.
maybe
Fine.
once.
But no, I'm always wearing shorts. I'm never wearing suit pants, which is a real problem because my suits now are starting to like the top. If you wear the top and get that dry, you have to still dry clean them together. Because I'm like, oh, my pants are fine. I don't need to dry clean those. But I should probably get this thing, crisped up a little bit. But then the color starts to change. So COVID really started to change the top and bottom of my suits because I don't wear the pants anymore.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in boxers half the time on my Zoom meetings because I know I saw a funny bit. You were on one of the shows yesterday, and you were talking about no pants, and I wanted to bring that up. That's hilarious.
They wanted me to like zoom down and like,
yeah,
I'm like,
you're
like this can go nowhere good.
Yeah, exactly. And so I mentioned that you're focused on football all the time. So how did you kind of, when you got to ESPN, fit into the lane of just like the NFL?
I've always done the NFL, other than literally college football at UF. So I got hired my last year at UF. I had broken a couple of stories, and the guy who covered, Joe Schad, actually, who's now at the Palm Beach Post covering the Dolphins, but was at ESPN for a number of years. He had left the Orlando Sentinel, and I was his correspondent. He left covering the Gators to go to a different job, and they had this opening, and I was a senior in college, and I broke a couple of big stories, and they kept. I wrote this one story about Channing Crowder. Me and him went into he's a former Gator player, now does the Pivot podcast.
Yeah.
Me and him went into the woods and chased hogs together and like wrote this big story, and it got a lot of play and publicity. And they basically were like, what are we doing? We need to hire Darlington. And they're like, well, he's still in college. So they ended up hiring me. And I'm a little reluctant to say this, but
it's the blitz.
They paid me $40,000 a year, and I was still in college, which I know maybe like, I don't know if you realize $40,000 in college is ridiculous.
You're the king at all the parties.
I was the
king. Yeah.
The first thing I did, like, I can never criticize like Pac-Man Jones. The first thing I did was drive to Orlando and bought a brand new Infiniti G35 and like drove it back. I'm like, hey guys, look what I got. It's like, that was literally my salary. But for me, I was like, I don't have any other bills. Yeah. And like, I mean, if I was like the rookie in the NFL, I was the guy who made all the mistakes. But so about 6 months after that, I was doing pretty well on the beat. I got the job covering the Dolphins. So I was like 23, I think 22, 23. And I got my first job covering an NFL team. And a year later, the Miami Herald hired me. So I've literally covered the NFL, oddly enough, for almost half my life.
Yep.
Which again makes me sound old, but that's how I got into the NFL, and I've never wavered.
Yeah, I'm just picturing you as like a member of like the U in the heyday with all those guys making their money on the side and stuff.
Yeah, totally. No, I didn't. 40 grand was enough for me, man. That was unbelievable.
Good amount.
Yep.
And so you mentioned your relationship with Channing Crowder there. So a lot of your job has to be about relationship building. But I feel like a lot of the times as a member of the media and working for ESPN, that you could be portrayed as like an annoyance, right? To an athlete. Right. That's like, hey, can you do this interview? Like maybe I was annoying you asking to do this interview. So like a lot of the times I feel like from an athlete standpoint, the media can be like an annoyance. And so how do you avoid that narrative to then get in?
I mean, I'm annoying as shit. Who said I avoided that narrative? No, I mean, dude, it's like the hardest part about the job is fostering unnatural relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Every relationship you enter into is starting with mistrust. Like generally you can start with a clean slate, but for me, every relationship starts with like you're actually behind the 8 ball when it comes to it. You're starting in a place of mistrust. And you just have to build it. Like you just have to, I think for me, the biggest thing has always been like, take your time. and be patient. My thought has always been like a couple things, and you learn this as you go. But when you're young, like you're like, I got to do it now. I got to make my mark. I got to dive in. And for me, I was afforded a little bit of the luxury of, like I said, I got hired so young that I learned patience pretty quick. I never had to go, be the beat guy in some city outside of Green Bay and really if I just did my job and stayed in my lane, I felt like I could make a pretty good career out of it. So I'm not naive to the luxury I was afforded in that regard, but I do think patience is just the key. With Channing Crowder is actually a really good example. I learned very early on, also the importance of being like, fair is probably not the right word, but just down the middle, man. Channing got in a lot of trouble in college, and I was never going to defend the things he did or write favorable just because I knew him. But his mom actually came up to me after school at one point, a year after, because he had gotten drafted by the Dolphins. She came up, she was like, the reason why my family has always really enjoyed your work and respected you as a sports writer was when Channing was going through his hard times, you wrote some pretty harsh things, but it was all right down the middle. It was a presentation of facts as opposed to a bias either way. And I think that you can make a career out of that. It's difficult in this time because you don't necessarily elevate yourself in terms of attention. But if you do just good, solid reporting for a long time, people eventually, and still at this point, they still don't completely, but eventually they start to notice.
Yep, 100%. And relationships take time to build, and
yeah,
a lot of effort should go into that. And it's important for the industry that you're in, and I guess that we're in. And so, one of the better relationships that I feel like you have is with Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. I'll say the greatest athlete of all time. And so, how did you nurture that relationship with the GOAT?
I mean, this is one of those ones where it's Tom Brady would probably roll his eyes many times if the way it's I'm best friends with Tom Brady,
Yeah.
he might know my name,
Right?
Might, but I think that when you're in this industry again long enough and put yourself in situations, I'm the kind of guy, I have severe FOMO. So anytime there's something going on, I'm I cannot stay in my hotel room. I can't not do this. And I think I put myself in position to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've met a lot of people that are close with Tom, and covered a lot of his games, covered a lot of events. Early on, when I first kind of got going covering the whole league as opposed to one team, I remember telling myself don't bother with the guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers, because those guys have been playing so long. They have their relationships in the media. They're not going to go for a young guy like me. I was always focused on the younger guys, like RG3 and Ryan Tannehill, any guy that was kind of coming up. I was all right, I'd rather just go cover those guys, get to know them. But, I think the lesson that I learned there is that, I'm still the same age as a lot of these guys for now, the older ones actually. So suddenly you start to realize they're just humans too, man. Maybe Tom's a little different, but then he's a little superhuman, but they're still just guys. And, I think that that's sort of what led to at least my knowledge of Tom and sort of his people.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And so just last thing here on Tom, but one of my favorite stories and pieces that you've done in sports has been the Hey Noah project. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But for those that don't know, and chime in when you want to kind of make the story what it is, but a young boy was at a Bucs game. He was holding up a sign that said, "Tom Brady helped me beat brain cancer." And so I think it was Chris Godwin helped point Tom in the direction that, "Hey, Tom, you should go over and say hi to this kid." And Tom walks over, realized that he actually made a video for the kid earlier in that year that kind of encouraged him through his treatment. And then Tom put a hat on his head, shook his hand, And it was this great moment, right? That then turned into a larger piece that you did. So what did a project like that mean to you?
I don't think I'll ever, it's one of those things where who knows what comes next with storytelling. And I never like to think that I know that one story will be better, but I don't know how I'll ever like a story more than that one in terms of the way it came about, the story itself, the people involved. Like that for me is my favorite story. And I don't know how that will ever be topped in my own personal sort of archive of stories. And part of the reason why I think is because I was there and I was like a part of, I witnessed it and I made the connection immediately to what was happening, which is the greatest thing in storytelling. Like it's one thing to be told about a story and get assigned it, and be like, hey, there's this story out there. You should dig into this. And that's cool. That's great. That happened with one of my favorite stories with Dak Prescott. Became friends with this kid who's a painter who has no arms. And the story turned out awesome. And it got nominated for an Emmy. And at the time was one of my favorites. But this Noah piece, I witnessed it and it was organic. And I was standing on the sidelines, Bucks Bears game. And I see the kid with the sign already. And I'm like, damn, that's pretty touching. And then all of a sudden I see Tom start to walk over there. And I get my phone out and I take a picture of it. And the kid's like got his hand, he's bawling. And it was so emotional in the moment. Walked over to the kid right away after and was like, hey, my name's Jeff, and got his name just so I knew it. And I remember texting my boss like, hey, I just witnessed the story. We've got to do it. And as I'm leaving the stadium, there's no one out there in the parking lot except like this weird serendipitous moment. It was the dad and the kid playing catch in the parking lot, waiting for their Uber. And I started talking to him and we talked for like probably a half hour, 45 minutes. And at the end, he told me the whole story and no one had known the story at that point. We just saw this cool moment. No one had realized that Tom Brady had made the video. Tom barely realized it at that point that he had made the video. It was like the super organic thing. It wasn't like a Make-A-Wish Foundation. The family, 2 days before, the family had promised the kid back when he was going through cancer treatments that they would take him to see Tom Brady play live. And 2 days before, they were like, this is the game. And they bought the best tickets they could buy. And all the family couldn't go because they were too expensive. So just the dad and the kid. So like all this organic stuff's happening. And I just say to the dad, like, they lived in Salt Lake City. I'm like, I got to fly out and interview your family. So literally 2 days later, was on a plane. We turned the story, which is not something you do with features like this, in 4 days.
It was on NFL Game Day the next week, right?
It was on Countdown the next week.
Countdown.
And like that's unheard of with features like that. But it was like this clear opportunity that it was like this confluence of just serendipitous moments between my relationship with the Tom Brady thing and witnessing it myself and knowing the Bucks really well. Like I just don't know that I'll ever be able to top that one.
Right. I mean, that was an absolute tearjerker too. If people go check that out.
I like, it sounds like even that it's my story. Every time I watch it, I cry. Like I don't, and it's like, I should know by now that I'm not, but every time I watch it, I cry. It's That's like, cool. Just, it crushes me.
Right. And it's cool that you were kind of there root to fruit in Tampa to actually see it. That's a really cool aspect of the story as well. And so now like focusing on just specific like interviews you've done with players, and you've done a lot of these sit down longer form features. But do you have a specific like favorite interview that you've done with a player?
I mean, interviewing Tom Brady in general is like pretty awesome. And even if you feel like you know him and you can treat him like a human, like I remember sitting down in New York with him leading up one of the big ones that we had done. I remember saying to the producers the night before, like we were having drinks or whatever, and they had not interviewed Tom before or been in the room for it. And I'm like, look, here's the deal. Like he's going to come in the room, and first of all, he's going to suck the air out of the room. He's this huge presence. But then what he's going to do is he's going to make you feel at ease, and you're going to be like, this guy's great. He's just like us. and you're going to be nervous. It's weird, dude. It's weird. It's not a normal experience with an athlete. But I said, the one thing you have to remember as you're doing this assignment, like, he's going to put you at ease to a degree. And that's important to realize that he is, quote unquote, one of us. But at the same time, do not forget that you are interviewing Babe Ruth. You are a living legend is going to be sitting in front of you, and treat it as such. Like, even when he puts you at ease, remember that you need to bring your absolute A game, because this is the greatest football player of all time. And you're sitting there with him as an active player with the chance to interview him. So I never lose sight of that.
Right.
Like, people can say like, hey, just, be cool. It's fine. It's Tom Brady. And like, even if you know him, he deserves your respect when it comes to interviewing him about what he does best, which is football.
Right. No, that's awesome. And I was going to ask you, kind of, do you have any general advice? Like, I guess specifically, not just for me, but for people doing these types of interviews? Cause like I've done, this is now will be 21.
Yeah.
I've sat down with Dana White in person, which I was freaking out before, but
yeah, I watched that one. Yeah.
He walks in the room, takes the air out of the room. He says,
Yep.
hey, how about them fucking Celtics? And I'm like, okay, this guy's a normal guy.
That's
and
right.
I just come back down to earth a little bit. But like, yeah, just like moving for like any general interview advice moving forward.
I mean, I think that's important. Like, I always try to, like, if the subject doesn't do that, like Dana White is a pro and knows that the best interview is going to be the one where he makes the interviewer feel as comfortable as he is. And if that doesn't happen by the subject, I'll take it upon myself to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, usually before the interview starts, I mean, you're especially these big ESPN ones, you got cameras all over you, and like people who are on edge because they're trying to do their job, and everybody's quiet and it's tense. It's not a normal conversation, but you have to do your best before you start rolling. Like, I pretty systematically, going into the interview, will be like, hey, even if it's someone like Patrick Mahomes, when he was like early on, I'll be sure to like make clear to him, like, look, dude, this is being taped. We're good. Like, don't feel like you're live. Don't feel the nerves of live television. And I'll usually be like, fuck, shit, damn, ass. Like, watch that. I just said that. And we can go back and edit. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But then my producer always has to scrub the transcript after, because I always do that. Get rid of that stuff that I said.
I like that move.
But like, you just try to find some way to make them realize that, like, a lot of people will sometimes be like, oh, Darlington's a little bit of a, I don't know, just say anything. Like, he's a little bit,
he's the bad boy of media.
Little crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's kind of by design a little bit.
Right.
There's a little bit of like, if I can show you that, that I'll go over the top of you in any way, then I'm going to win your trust a little bit, because you're going to realize, okay, he's way out there. I can certainly kind of show my true colors a little bit, and he'll take care of me.
Yep.
And like, we're going to play off of each other in that way. So I think just making someone feel really comfortable, and then, otherwise just being nimble, being willing to like ask questions. And if they provide, you got to be prepared, but nimble. Like, you have to know, look, if this guy is not answering my questions, if he's not into it and he's not providing interesting stuff, you've got to have a strategy of what you're asking next.
Yep.
But at the same time, if he's into it, you've got to be willing to be like, all right, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to make a left turn here, even though, I've only got 10 minutes. I'm going to take a chance here, make a left turn, and see if I can get something cool out of him. So be prepared, be nimble, and be comfortable.
Absolutely. I'm going to write that one down. I mean, I generally come into these things with like a storyboard, themes, and
as you
around.
should. Preparation is hugely important in an interview. It's the most important thing. But I also think that the preparation, even if you don't use it all, it builds confidence when you are asking questions. Like, he might say something that triggers in your mind something that you already know about him, but weren't necessarily planning to ask.
Right.
So preparation is still the key to all of it.
and then treat it like a fucking game day. I was bumping Thunderstruck before you came
Yeah.
on.
You know what mine is? And it has been since 2000. This is so lame. But Lose Yourself by Eminem.
No, that's sick.
Since the song came out, I remember I was like I had to get Rex Grossman, where he was like holed up in a condo in Clearwater, and he was like deciding whether he was going to go pro or not. And I remember like pulling up to the condo, and I was definitely trespassing. And I was like trying to pump myself up to go do it because I was nervous as hell. And I put that song on, and that was like it's like off, like picture like the scene in Office Space, where he's like listening to this music and he has to like roll up his window and turn it down. That was basically me. But that's, to this day, that's my song. Like that's my pump up song.
Yeah, it's important to have a pump up song, and I'm not afraid. I also do Yeah by Usher. That's a good one.
Wow, that's along my lines right there.
Yeah.
Well, we're really making ourselves look awesome,
like losers. But yeah, so one last question before we get into some rapid fire here. But what is your ultimate goal in your career in media? Is it to kind of just embrace the journey you're in right now, or is there an ultimate like goal for you at the end?
Dude, I think that is like such a battle for anybody in this industry. This industry is full of people who are in the constant pursuit of happiness. It is full of people, and I say it all the time, and I try so hard myself to embrace it. Like, there's so many people in our industry because it's so cutthroat and such a ladder to climb, that they're going to turn 55, 60 years old, and they're going to be like, wow, I had an awesome job and I was miserable the entire time because I was constantly chasing the next thing. And again, I'm not naive to the fact that like I'm in a really good position, but even when you're in this position, you're constantly thinking like, well, when am I going to cover the Super Bowl? When am I going to, do this? When am I going to do that? When it's like, I try so hard to be like, no, this is awesome. This is so cool. Like, I'm covering the AFC Championship game right now. This is amazing. Covering Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. Like, this is so cool. For me, I think I'm doing what I love, but I think you kind of want to continue to just elevate in terms of storytelling. Keep finding the Hey Noah story. Because the second that you stop looking, you're kind of dead in the water in this industry. So being appreciative in the moment, but also kind of pursuing the stuff that makes me happy. I'm in a pretty good space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Live in the moment. Did you see that Michelob Ultra commercial with Tiger Woods last week or at the PGA Championship? So I don't know if you saw this, but Tiger's going to hit, right? And there's like 150 people behind him. He's in the rough. So everyone has their phone out. But there's this one.
Oh, the one
dude's got a Michelob Ultra just sitting there living in the moment.
Yes.
And Michelob Ultra, it turns it into this great campaign about living in the moment.
No, that is it's very true. It's a very difficult thing to do because the second that, like I find that I can enjoy life, but you also got to kind of have your foot on the gas pedal at the same time. So it's a very, very tricky balance.
Yep. It's important. Awesome. No, I love it. And so dive into some rapid fire. You can do one word, one phrase, take as long as you want. But we'll dive right in. Right. So who was your favorite athlete growing up as a kid?
Bo Jackson.
It's a good one.
No brainer.
Favorite athlete to watch in current day sports?
There's
so much talent in the NFL right now.
I was going to say so Tom Brady was, I believe in, I know this is rapid fire. I believe in, like, I love watching history. So that's the reason for, Tom, but I love watching Patrick Mahomes play football.
Oh yeah.
I think he's so much fun to watch. So I'll go with Mahomes.
Yeah. I mean,
and I can't, I was trying to think, should I stay in the NFL circle? Like, head into the golf world or something like that, but I'll stick with Mahomes.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, he's incredible. And so what's your favorite sports moment?
Witnessing the 28-3 comeback was unbelievable. I mean, that you talk about like witnessing history. The other one that comes to mind real quick though is for some reason I loved this moment because it just turned the whole sports world on top of its head. Was Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas across the middle against
first
the
play
Steelers
in
in
OT.
overtime. I was at that game, and I covered that whole season in Denver. Like I basically lived in Denver and covered the whole Tebow mania thing. And I've never felt a press box shake like that. Like everybody's like, there's no cheering in the press box. I'm not calling it cheering, but everybody stood out of their seats and the place erupted. I've never seen a more emotional moment, a more charged moment.
Yeah.
Not even David Tyreek's helmet catch, which was amazing. That Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas play was something I will never forget, that moment being in it.
Plus a little biasy because he's a Florida Gator.
You would think it was more, it wasn't that as much as it was, I love when the sports world gets turned on its head and no one could figure out Tebow mania. And I loved it. I love that people would argue over Tebow mania. It was the funniest thing in the world to me.
I'm a big Tebow guy. No, that's a good answer. I like that moment. I was actually at the as a fan at the Seahawks Patriots. So when Malcolm Butler picked that off in the end zone.
That was awesome too.
Yeah.
That was totally, talk about flipping. I remember standing in the tunnel downstairs when that happened, and all the Seahawks players coming through, like so pissed off, like why would we pass it? Run the ball. They were like screaming. It was like, that was talk about a charged moment.
Yeah, electric. And so, football question for this year: who's winning the Super Bowl?
Chiefs. That was an instinctive call.
You're gonna go back on it?
No, I'm gonna go with it because no one knows. You know what I mean? Like anybody who's got like some. I always laugh when people have such conviction about like that kind of a prediction. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's almost like when like the Rams Bucks game this year, when everybody's like, oh, Tom Brady sucks, he's done. It's like Falcons. It's like, he's going to come back. Like, why would you have such conviction about any opinion in this situation? Same thing with like, here's what I'll say. The
AFC is stacked. I wish the Super Bowl could be Chiefs Bills. I think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl.
That was the Super Bowl this year.
Oh my god.
Without question.
That was incredible.
The Super Bowl.
Were you there?
No, I was at the Bucks Rams. It was the same day.
Yeah.
Which was also, that day was incredible. That was an incredible day of football.
Insane.
But Chiefs Bills, I think, was this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Bills could get there too. Damn, there's some parity this year. Bucks could do it. I don't think the Packers, I feel like they'll be a favorite, but without Devontae Adams, I think that was such an oversight.
Yes.
By the Packers. I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but
no, it's cool. Yeah.
But I don't know, like, who would the sleeper team be? I don't think the Bengals get back.
No.
Bills.
Watch
Chiefs,
out for
Bucks,
the Colts.
Packers.
Watch out for
Colts.
the Colts.
Colts are good. I love Matt Ryan to the Colts.
Watch out for the Colts.
That's a good one.
Really, really good defense.
Yeah, I knew that.
I think I don't believe in Russell Wilson, but the Broncos.
Denver has a really good team.
Really good team.
Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to Denver for a reason. That team is very good.
Yeah.
Denver's not a bad sleeper. Colts and Broncos are good sleepers.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it.
AFC stacked. Okay, so not football anymore, but what is the biggest fish that you've ever caught?
So our boat caught last year, and it's not me because it's like one of those team sport kind of things. But the guy on our boat caught a 91-pound black grouper, which set the record. It was the Key West Fish of the Year. They do like this kind of ongoing tournament in Key West through the whole season, and that fish won. It set the record at the Stock Island Marina down there by like 32 pounds. Maybe 40, I can't remember what, 42, but 91 pounds is a monster for a black grouper. Personally, I mean, I don't know weight wise, but I've caught some big ass grouper, caught some pretty big sailfish. I'm going to the Bahamas this summer, and I'm hoping to catch a marlin.
There you go.
So hopefully that'll maybe be my new personal best. Some big mahi. but I love fishing.
I'm a boat guy myself. I'm looking for one of these fishing invites, but the
Come on down,
grouper,
babe.
the grouper is just phenomenal. That's my favorite fish to eat. So I
Same.
go down to the west side of Florida, southwest side, and it's the best. It's the
So
best.
we do that fish that we caught last year for the past 20 years. So a buddy of mine, Greg Orpeza, lives in Key West, and he's like fifth generation Key West, like his family's family. You know, his grandpa tells stories about the Cuban Missile Crisis and, you know, missiles lined up on the beach outside his house. So they're like hardcore Key West. And since college, in like 2002, we have been doing a trip to the Dry Tortugas, which is 70 miles west of Key West.
Sick.
And you sleep on the boat. It's the center console. If it rains on your head.
Yeah.
And you fish, and, you know, you're disgusting the whole trip, and it feels so good.
Yep.
And 20 years later, we're still doing it every single year.
Wow.
And it's funny, like we joked this year that when you tell people about it, back when you tell people when you're younger, like, yeah, we sleep on the center console. Now we're 40 years old and you say that and people are looking at you like, it's a little weird, dude. Like, you know, it goes from being like this fun adventure to people are like, dude, you don't want to just get like a nicer boat?
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I mean, it's the best trip in the world.
That's incredible. I love that. And so now 2 more here, but what's the largest object that you've spun on your finger?
A card table in Austin on my bachelor party. There was like a street meat vendor, and I was obviously intoxicated.
Yeah.
And they had the table next to the street meat vendor with like the ketchup and the condiments and whatnot, the napkins. And there's a whole crowd around. And I decided to clear off the table and close the legs on this giant, you know, 4x4 card table and spin it in the middle of the street to a raucous ovation, which I can spin anything.
Let's see a spin. I was gonna ask, what do we got?
I can spin anything with centrifugal force.
I mean, that's incredible.
So like textbooks were the thing. Like I learned in high school, pillows and textbooks, and then realized you could really spin anything with centrifugal force.
The hands don't look too small when you're spinning the
book. That's much better. But the card table is the biggest thing for sure. But I can spin, you know, laptops. I think I've done smaller TVs. Anything.
Those are my favorite videos. I love that.
Sofa cushions are a good one.
Yep.
Crowd favorite.
Yep.
It used to be the kind of thing where, like, I've done this since high school, and it used to be something that was just like a party trick. And then for some reason, it was only like a year ago, no one knew I did this other than like my friends. And I just was sitting on my balcony and just started spinning it. And people were like, wait, you can spin things? And they're like, what else can you spin? So I started showing the trick. But it was the first time I'd ever done it, like, you know, for anybody during daylight hours.
Right.
But
awesome.
It's turned into quite the party trick.
Oh, you can spin things? I like that. Yeah. Last rapid fire. What is one word that best describes you?
I was loyal. Loyal was the first thing that came to mind. I think that I hope that describes me. I'd say loyal. I feel like that encompasses a lot of qualities that I aspire for. You know, like you can be loyal in many different ways, whether in a professional sense, whether in a fun sense, whether in a, you know, serious way. I'd say loyal.
Probably one of the most important characteristics of building relationships is being
for
loyal.
Sure. Loyalty and truth.
Yep. And so, Jeff, I really appreciate the time. We're going to finish up with one larger question here. And we touched on a lot of great themes throughout the conversation. But if you had one theme that you learned throughout your journey in sports and sports media that you could pass along to the next generation to help them accomplish their dreams, what would that be?
You know, we just kind of touched on it. I would say that so truth is the most important thing. And I'd say trust and truth. If you can just be patient in this industry, which is such a difficult quality to kind of, you know, subscribe to, because you're constantly like, yeah, but if I do this and I'm right, it's a big one. If you can just be patient and let like that patience pay off through being truthful, being like responsible with your reporting. If something is like, you're like, yeah, it's 90% true, but this is a big one. It's not good enough. Be patient. Wait until the one that you get that is 100% true. It's just better to be patient and right. And I'm not saying like, you know, they say like better to be right than first. It's better to be both. It's better to be right and first, right? But just be patient, man. Don't I don't know, don't sacrifice your truth, your trust for any scoop or any story. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's especially so hard in sports because it just happens like that. And you want to be quick and you want to be the first to jump, but like you said, you want to make
because
sure
you don't really make it's hard to make a name for yourself like that. Like I'm not, I don't think I'm like, you know, I'm no freaking household name. No one really knows who I am, but I can kind of look at my reporting and be proud of the fact that like it's consistent. It's you know, comes with integrity. Like as long as those are the, you know, the backbone of what I'm doing, I don't really give a shit if people know who I am or not.
Hell yeah. I fucking love it. Well, Jeff, I appreciate it.
Yeah, bud.
Before I let you go, I got to put you on the spot here, but I'm also a Pitt sweater.
Yes. I like that.
Dude.
The problem is it's I'm actually not like a major sweater. It's the, like, you know, these lights, they hit you hard. Dude. But this seat in particular is really a tricky one.
Dude, my pits, when I do interview and everywhere I go, my pits just drip.
Yeah,
just
interview pits are definitely a real thing.
Oh,
like for
man.
sure. Yeah, if your pits are not sweating, you're not you don't care enough about your interview.
Dude, and I haven't found a single deodorant out there in the universe that controls it. So hey, maybe we gotta start a new venture as a side hustle and then make. That's right.
Well, you just you just got to make sure you cover them. Like at game days, like Sunday game days, like people are like, God, how do you wear a suit out here? I'm like, I have to, otherwise you'll see that I'm sweating.
Right.
So you just got to camouflage that shit.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, yeah, no, thanks again. A ton of great lessons.
Yeah,
super inspiring.
I appreciate the blitz. Big fan of the morning blitz. And you know, it's you guys keep it going.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess one question, not to get a little self-endorsement here, but does the morning blitz actually help you ever do your job?
Yeah, I would say so, from a standpoint of it's just all in one. You know, you can kind of get everything you need. You can wake up in the morning, check it out, and feel like you at least start your day knowing that you're not going to be surprised by anything. So, man, I'm a big blitzer.
Everything you need to know in the world of sports, 5 minutes or less, baby.
That's right.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. I know you got a busy day. So
thanks, bud.
Hopefully do this again soon and
yeah,
have
man.
a good one.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.